Hi everyone, this is Gayle. Welcome to my channel tonight. Hey, it's Saturday night on hashtag Be a Bodacious channel. So welcome. We've got Women's Station channel already in the house. So hats off to you. Not really, my hair looks bad, but it's great, good to be with you guys. So a couple of things we're going to talk about tonight is the difference between a therapy dog and a service dog. And that's in relation to a very big historic meeting that I went to today for the United Methodist Church. So I'm going to talk a little bit about that too. Now, I'm just a little out of breath. Sorry about that. Literally, I came in from this big meeting just a little while ago, long enough to get my computer turned on and booted up and to double check the link for the live stream tonight that I realized I hadn't set up. And so here we are together. So it's a little bit out of breath, but the meeting was a really big meeting. It was about 3 hours away. I had to go to Knoxville. So Knoxville from Abingdon is about 3 hours. And it was major church meeting, historic. So I'm going to fill you in on that. Let me see too if I can pick up some information online, because that way if you need more information about the event, I'll be able to direct you. I'm actually going to post the link on my profile page, and you'll have that profile page over on Facebook. So you'll be able to access that too for more info. So yeah. So it's been a day. How are you all doing today? I hope that your weekend is going better and that your Saturday is a great day. As per fitting, it rained all day, which was so appropriate for being stuck inside in a meeting. But the meeting is where it's a good thing, but it's also a frustrating thing, because the meeting is, yay, Women's Station channel is excited to be here, and she has just shared it. Thank you. That really helps. I appreciate that so much. So at the meeting today, a lot of people were asking about the difference between the service dog and a therapy dog. Somebody mentioned ESA, so I'm going to mention that too. But real quick, I'm looking at a little press release here. So I'm going to read to you all from that. But the big meeting that I went to was with the Holston Conference of the United Methodist Church. And sadly, we voted today to allow 264 churches to disaffiliate from the United Methodist Church. So they are leaving. They're going to go to other denominations, or they're going to become independent. That's up to them. It's been multi-years coming. And it's not just in the Holston Conference, it's denomination-wide that this is going on. So it is really tough, because I know a lot of the people that are leaving, and I like them, but we just have some fundamental differences of opinion, and it was just best for everybody's sakes that this happened, even though we really tried hard to keep the denomination in our corner of the world together. So there's a little bit of a hierarchy within the United Methodist Church. Let me explain that real quick, and then we're going to go on into talking about the service dogs. Don't think I forgot. But with the hierarchy of the Methodist Church, you have like your local pastors, then you have your elders, and you have district superintendents, then you have bishops, and that would form a conference. So think about it as in, I'll just pick on the SEC, the Southeastern Conference, with the football and so forth, that kind of conference. So we have that, and then they're in jurisdictions. So if you think of it in a corporate sense, it's like if you have districts and then you have regions. So we would have the conference and then we would have the jurisdiction would be our region. Then you would have sometimes a little bit larger area, and keep on going, and then we would have the church worldwide. So that's a very, very basic view of the United Methodist Church. So in our corner of the world, we're within the Holston Conference. And I wish the churches well that are leaving, because you want them to be satisfied and you want them to be able to help people and move forward. And this divide was not allowing that to happen. So I'm going to read to you what they said so I can make it all official, get all the wording right, because I tell you, I'm a little bit punchy. Hey, you all, I had to leave home. I had to leave home this morning a little bit before 6, so I've been literally up since 5. So for that reason, I'm definitely going to read what they wrote. So, okay. So it says, media contact, Tim Jones, Director of Communications, Knoxville, Tennessee. United Methodists of the Holston Conference worship together for the last time today as a body of 842 local churches before voting to allow 264 churches to leave the denomination. A special session of the Holston Annual Conference was held at Central United Methodist Church in downtown Knoxville on today, Saturday, the 22nd of April, to worship and process requests for churches to exit the United Methodist Church. The meeting also included the kickoff of a visioning and prayer campaign for the future of the Holston Conference, which has 578 remaining churches in East Tennessee, Southwest Virginia, and North Georgia. The gathering was attended by 945 members and guests, representing both remaining and departing churches. And then there's some quotes, and it has a link to the list of churches leading the Holston Conference, which will now join 2,095 U.S. congregations that have withdrawn from the UMC since 2019, which represents about 7% of U.S. United Methodist churches. With the disaffiliations approved today, the total conference membership will move from 148,580 to 117,378, which represents 21% of the members who are departing the denomination. 66% or 175 of the 264 disaffiliation have fewer than 100 members, and out of 25 Holston churches with more than 1,000 members, 23 will remain United Methodist. And then it talked about the approval process, and then it says 578 churches now have the opportunity and calling to set a new course, which I am excited about that. Personal note there. It says, as painful as it was that hour has passed, now we have this hour, this moment, and I believe this time. And we are a people moving into the future with courage and determination. Now that's a quote from our bishop. So I'm going to put this over on my Facebook profile. And let's see. Chat part is live. Video is old. Video is not old. So that's kind of what happened today. And it's all come to a head about several issues. One is church property. There's the issue of homosexuality, and some other things have kind of come into play, but those are the two main things. And we are governed by a book of discipline that some churches didn't want to follow, which also factored into churches leaving and so forth. So it's all pretty complicated, but in a nutshell, those are the two things. So it's been a rough day because it's hard seeing people that leave. I mean, because you know how it is when somebody leaves their job and they go on to another position elsewhere. Well, this is like entire families going elsewhere. So there's some sadness. So I'll be processing some of that. But I think that there's a good opportunity for the churches to really reach out and grow and spread. And I am excited about that. I think we're going to be able to reach, people who are younger without as much of a burden, perhaps. But anyway, yeah, I don't want to get too much into my thoughts there, but that's just my personal point of view. I was one of the guests that was there. And I would say that probably there was around 150 or so of us that were guests that were there just kind of to observe. So, yeah. But for those of you who don't know, I used to be a pastor. And so that's tough. So, anyhow, all of that meeting goes into our next topic, which is the difference between a service dog and a therapy dog and an emotional support dog. I didn't think about going into this that much, but at that meeting that I just talked about, people were coming from everywhere trying to pet Pipsy. And of course, Pipsy is a service dog. So what is the number one rule about service dogs? Don't distract the service dog. And that's what people wanted to do because we were at an event and there was lots of people there and they were having to run shuttles. And this was his first time in a shuttle bus with me, which is really kind of cool. I will say that. And he handled it like a pro that he is. Even being around all those hundreds of people didn't bother him a bit. But people left and right kept coming up to talk to him because we were at the event and it was stressful. And they were like, "Can I pet your dog?" And I was like, "No, I'm sorry, you can't because he's a service dog." And they were like, "Oh, I thought that maybe he'd be one of the comfort dogs and we could pet him." And what they meant by, I kept hearing comfort dogs, but what they meant was therapy dogs. And somebody else said, "Well, isn't he an emotional support dog? Isn't he here for us to pet?" And I was like, "No, he's not." I mean, he was in his harness that says service dog all over the place. I'll put a picture of it over in the tab section for community conversation. I'll put a picture of that in just a little bit after the live stream. So the difference between a service dog and a therapy dog and an emotional support is in the type of training, and it's also in the personality of the dog. So at the organization that I went through, the program that trained Pipsy also trains therapy dogs. There are some basic things that all of the dogs get trained to do. Bracing, retrieving, things like that. And then the dogs do tend to alert to blood sugar, which is what Pipsy was doing for a good portion of the meeting. He was like, "Mom, your blood sugar is dropping. Fix it. Fix it now," which I really couldn't do too well. But that was part of his job. That was part of his task that he was doing. And so all the service dogs are trained to do that. Let's see. Peter Parker, Spider-Man the Hero, says, "Oh, the Super Mario Brother movie is good." That's good to know. And Peter Parker says, "Distract the owner and pet the owner, not the dog." Yeah, I guess you could do it that way. I have actually threatened to get a tag for him, the bandanas and things that say service dog all over the place. I've been tempted to get one that says, "Never mind the dog, owner bites," or "Do not pet, owner bites," something like that. But anyhow, so the difference is in the training. So like I said, this particular agency trains for some of the basic things. And some of their dogs who are therapy dogs that have that training do also sometimes pick up on people's blood sugar, especially if they're around like kids at school and they start to get to know some of the kids. Also, they can be trained to go find. And if you have a kid that walks away, like some kids do, then you can take the dog through the school and go find for a therapy dog. And for the service dog, he's also trained to go find a particular person, in which case, if I'm at Walmart and I should fall or have problems or whatever, I can tell the dog, go find husband, and he will go find him. Or he'll wind up in the pet aisle. Yeah, no, he'll find him, don't worry. So that's some of the basic training that this particular agency does for all the dogs. So they start out with some basic common knowledge. And of course, they do all of their basic manners. So they know to sit, stay, come, high five, give paw, things like that. Obviously, toilet training. So those are standards. So where it changes is the service dog actually goes a little further to become task trained. And what I mean by task trained is the bracing, retrieving dropped items. Y'all seen the video, and if you haven't, I hope you will, where Pipsy goes and he gets my inhaler and he brings it to me when I start to have an asthma attack. I have it in both my living room and in my purse. So if I start having problems, he knows to automatically just go and get that. He will get the mail, pick things up out of the floor. So he'll do that for me. And he's really a pretty helpful guy. He also alerts to my blood sugar. And he is dead on the money when it comes to alerting to blood sugar. So he knows whenever my blood sugar starts to get around 70 and below. And he also knows when it's like 200 and up, which fortunately usually doesn't happen unless I'm also having asthma problems and go on steroids. But those are some of the tasks that he does. Therapy dogs get trained to basically lay there and let kids climb all over them. And they will, they get trained to handle all the things that kids can throw at them, both literally with balls and, the climbing on the dogs, pulling the tail, pulling on the ears. Not that you want that to necessarily happen, but they're kids with a dog. So some of it is going to happen. They get trained to lay there and let the kids read to them. They get trained to be able to handle more hands-on, one-on-one attention. But they're not specifically task trained for a certain person's disabilities, if that makes any sense. Like Pipsy will brace for me. He knows to get my inhaler, which is specific to me. There is some hope that because he knows me and because we bonded, there's the hope that Pipsy will alert when I have a seizure and hopefully give me some warning. He's also trained to assist with my leg cramps when I have problems with there, because where I have the damaged nerve in my back, I will have red hot fire going down part of my back and right leg. And when that happens, my muscles just seize up and I have major problems. So he's specifically trained to assist with that. So a lot of therapy dog programs don't train dogs for retrieval and bracing. This organization, one of the things that I like about them is they do. So on therapy dogs, some of the organizations, the programs will take the dog, train them for basic obedience, and then for, like I said, with the classroom, kids laying on them and stuff. All of this is different from an ESA, which stands for Emotional Support Animal. And an ESA gets to go into housing with their owner, and that's really primarily the big thing. I don't have an ESA, so I can't tell you all the places they can go, which we'll talk about access here in just a second for all three of them. But emotional support animals are basically a pet that a doctor or somebody has signed off on saying that the patient needs this animal. So they don't have to have any kind of training or anything. They're just there. Support animals, service animals, have to be either dogs or miniature horse. And I know what you're thinking. I'm sure some of you all just went, miniature horse. But yeah, they're great for guiding and pulling wheelchairs and things like that. They're also bigger. So if you're a very tall person or a big person, you may benefit from a mini horse rather than like a little Labrador retriever, which, oh, I shouldn't say little, but a Labrador retriever, which can be smaller than a miniature horse. So lots of reasons there, but that's what you're limited to on the service animals. I have a service dog, and they get total access most of the places that humans can go, mini horse included. Any service animal, which is either going to be the dog or the miniature horse. So, for example, when I had to go have some surgery done, year and a half or so, the dog went with me even up to and through pre-op, not surgery itself, but he got to join me in recovery after. They have that level of access. Going to the emergency room, the dog stays with me, and he did great. Now, hopefully, we don't have to do that again. But going and getting my arm X-rayed, stuff, labs, doctors, restaurants, malls, Walmart, any place like that has to allow a service dog in. Now, in my state, therapy dogs don't get that level of access. And that's just because a lot of them are not specifically task trained. But they would go into like nursing homes, for example, to let people pet them, schools to let people pet them. Some of them spend a lot of time in school because they're owned oftentimes by teachers and guidance counselors or school principals. They might be in a therapist's office all day, so people can pet them when they go to have therapy. I mean, think therapy and think support, and that's a therapy dog. So service dogs would be like PTSD dogs, mobility, bracing, medical alert, and so forth. And therapy to dogs are really anything that goes with therapy. So because they are trained differently, they don't have the same level of access. Service dogs also have to pass what they call a public access test, which is actually a pretty hard test for a dog. In our case, we went to like the most calamitous, loudest, difficult place to have the test done that you can possibly even think of. Picture a food court at the mall. You're at the mall, you're in the food court, and you are right next to the arcade and the children's play area at the mall, and you're a dog, and then people have to come and step over you, around you, in between your two paws if you got your paws spread out. They're dropping food in front of you to make sure you don't get it. They're bouncing a ball right next to you and all around you to make sure you're able to focus and you're not getting the ball. Then somebody that you have never known before comes up and takes you walking away. Things like that. And that's a very difficult environment. And there's more to it. But that's just a very difficult place to take a test. And especially if you're a dog, what is the number one thing that dogs like to chase? Balls. And, picture being a dog and you've got all this noise and stuff going on, and then somebody's bouncing a ball all around you and they're dropping food and you can't react to any of it. That is a public access test. And service dogs must pass that test to be cleared to be a service dog. And a lot of dogs wash, they don't make it because they get into that kind of environment and they go, oh, ball, oh, French fries. You get it. Therapy dogs are trained to that level, or at least with this program, they're trained to that level of chaos, but more as it relates to kids and schools and those kinds of situations. They may go in when there is a major trauma. That's why I think people were looking for the dog today, to provide comfort and be petted. They'll go to college campuses during finals week because heaven knows if you ever need comfort, finals week, come on. For a lot of college students, that is the most stress that they will have been under in their lives at that point. So, yeah, so that. Emotional support animals, nah, they don't have to do any of that. And that's why they can't go everywhere. And the therapy dogs, you can see why they can't go everywhere. And service dogs, you can see why they're allowed everywhere. So that's the difference. And I also want to do one little point, and that is a lot of people will take the PTSD dogs and they'll think of them as therapy dogs or as emotional support animals. And oh, hey, Justin Mello's Music and Vlogs is in. Hey, Justin, welcome. But they will they'll take the PTSD dogs and kind of lump them in with therapy dogs or with emotional support. And PTSD dogs are specifically trained to do things like help make space in crowds. So if you've got social anxiety or you're nervous about being in crowds, or if that's triggering, then a PTSD dog can help make space. They are trained to recognize anxiety and mitigate that. They're trained for panic attacks to mitigate that. Some of them are trained to do a search when they go inside the house and somebody's nervous about going home because it triggers their PTSD. They're trained to do a search inside the house. Things like that and there's more, okay, there's more. But they're trained to do things like that to help mitigate PTSD. So they are very much task trained for that. So I hope that helps. What else? Do y'all have any questions about that or about the difference? Let's see. Going up. I saw, okay. Oh, yeah. Women's Station Channel is making the point that it's hard to see a miniature horse in a restaurant. A lot of miniature horses, believe it or not, are not any bigger than, say, a husky, which is what I had first. They're just not super big, but because they're stocky and they're built for like pulling wheelchairs and stuff and guiding, they're a big help. They're actually very trainable too. A lot of people don't realize that, but they can be trained to guide. And part of their natural instinct is finding homes. They go out and have a good time, but the horses can still find their way home. And that can also be very beneficial for somebody who, let's say they have, I can't think of the word I need. Dementia or Alzheimer's, head injuries, things like that, where they may get turned around super easily and won't be able to find their way back home. Then horses are known to be very helpful with that. And horses tend to range between 35, 40 inches tall, which is, I think a Great Dane, for example, is smaller than that. Let me just ask Google here. How big is a Great Dane? I looked up about the horse earlier. Okay, this says a Great Dane can be 34 inches tall. So not too much bigger, but a couple of inches bigger on the horse. So hopefully it'll give you an idea about the size that we're talking about. So yeah. So they do a lot. And yeah, Women's Station Channel says she can have a hard time with her surroundings. Can many horses stay in the home? I think that they do better when there's some land that they can walk in. But that's something you're going to have to ask a program. I've only known one person who was getting a miniature horse, but it was still in training, and that's been a few years ago. Really neat stuff, though. Really, really neat stuff. And then, like, when we were deciding about getting the other service dog, one of the things that I looked at was, should I get a miniature horse? I decided not to, because, like, if I fly, I've only got a certain amount of space. And that amount of space, I didn't feel like it's going to accommodate a really large dog or a miniature horse. And, your service dogs can be any breed of dog. So you got to keep that in mind. And some of them are really large. So yeah, we had to draw the line, so to speak. So yeah. And let's see, anything else? That's a lot to give for a service dog with retrieval and bracing. Yes. And that's actually, the retrieval and the bracing is actually the two main things that I felt like I needed a dog for. Because going up steps, it's pretty hard. And today, this was the first time that Pipsy went on any kind of bus with me or shuttle. And it was really, it was really, I was glad that he had the extra training to really brace, because it was hard for me to get up the steps to get on the shuttle. I thought they were kind of steep. Now, I'm probably the only person that thought the steps on the shuttle were steep. But I was glad that he could brace me up there. He has a special harness. This service dog does not wear a vest. He wears a harness, handles about that high up off his body. You've probably seen it in some of the other videos where he's wearing it. And so that enables me to hold on to them. They do have vests that some service dogs wear. And the difference in that is just depending on the type of training. So for me, I really needed the bracing. But as a bonus, I got the blood sugar, because he is dead on the money with that. And he was able to figure out, go get mom's inhaler and things like that to help stop my asthma attacks. So let's see. How could you afford a miniature horse, Gayle? And then she says they give them for free. So when you say they give them for free, are you talking about the horses or the service dogs? Because I didn't know about the horses, but I will say that the service dogs, some programs give them for free under certain conditions. So visual impairment, you can go through Guide Dogs of the Blind or Guide Dogs of America, and I believe they'll place them for free. A lot of your veterans can get free service dogs through some of the veterans groups that work with programs that train service dogs. And there are programs that exclusively train service dogs for veterans. So there you go on that. Most of the rest of us have to shell out the big bucks for service dogs. Pipsy cost $5,000. I was on the list for 2 years. During that time, not during, but right after that time, like right after I got Pipsy, within like 2 months, the price had gone up to $7,500. Now you think, oh my gosh, $7,500, but it's worth it to get a fully trained dog. And this dog was in 2 maximum security prisons. That's where he got some of his training. Had he not been trained there, I wouldn't have been able to have gotten him for that price, for the $5,000 or even the $7,500, because some of the programs that I looked at were like $16,000 and up, and they all require that you spend time at their program getting trained. In our case, it was 10 days, which is where you learn how to work with your dog. The dog has the skills. They've already trained the dog, but you got to figure out, what do I do? And I will tell you that the trainers we worked with to train my first service dog had a different style of training than did this program. Not worse or better, just like some of the terminology would be different. Just some little basic things like that. We will tell Pepsi, for example, go take a break when it's time to use the bathroom. And with my other one, we told them to go potty. So it's just little things like that. But there are things that you have to learn. And so above and beyond the initial cost of the dog, you got that also. Which, honestly, I could not have gotten him without y'all's help. I'll just be straight up on that. So I really appreciate it. Thank you. I just searched. The Guide Horse Foundation gives them away from free. Awesome. That is good to know. The person that I talked to, they were having theirs trained privately, but by a trainer. So yeah, it's amazing what animals can be trained to do, and horses are very trainable. Excuse me. For other things, because obviously, they do the race horses, which takes a lot of skill and a lot of patience to train a horse for that. So bring those skills, and certainly barrel racing and stuff, and bring those skills in. Yeah, it's tough, but I think they were paying, I want to say that they were looking at $40,000 for the horse and training. I want to say that's what they told me. And, things always go up, so it could have gone up from there. But some of the programs I looked at, easy $16,000 plus time to spend with their program. Also, for service dogs, when you go through a program, you have to have the doctor sign off. So you may have the cost for going to the doctor, sometimes 2 or 3 times, so the doctor can get familiar with you and sign off. With an ESA, you basically just go in, you talk to your doctor, and they sign off on it. So it's a big difference there. Okay. Yeah, I would expect that. Okay. Women's Station Channel is saying you have to have a fenced area and a barn for a mini horse. That makes sense to me. Because I know that full-grown horses, they recommend that you have a 1/4 acre, 1/2 acre for them. So I'm going to assume that for a guide horse, you're probably going to need around a 1/4 acre, 1/2 acre also, because they need to have room to run. Service dogs also need room to run. And we're having a problem with Pipsy because our house is very close to the street. And so we have to make sure he doesn't go near the road. So we got a challenge with that we're working on. So yeah, that's some of the differences between the therapy animal, the service animal, and the emotional support animal. Also, emotional support can be any breed. Service animal, you're pretty much, the ADA only recognizes miniature horses and dogs. And that's because they are extremely trainable, whereas some of the other animals are not. So you can have any animal, just about, as I understand it, for an ESA. So yeah. Anybody else have any questions? Okay, well, I want to thank you all for coming out tonight. I hope this has been helpful. Um, how do you curb a dog when you're blind? Horse too, for that matter. Service dogs are trained to go on command. So it's I'm not blind, but I've talked to a few people who are, and there is generally a relief area that is either set up on their behalf or it's designated, and you take them to that area and you learn the route and tell the dog to take a break, go potty, whatever your specific command is, and they will go on command. Now, it does take them, 30 seconds to a minute to get the message sometimes, especially if they like to sniff. But within a minute or so, they're taking care of business. That helps tremendously. Also, dogs are, I don't know what that noise is. Um, Sorry, distraction. Um, so dogs will, they, sorry, y'all. But dogs being trained on command really help. Also, the dogs from this program are trained to go on any surface. So if you are in the airport and you have AstroTurf, or if you are on a sidewalk and that's what you got, then the dogs are trained to go on any of that and everything in between. Piddle pads, if you have them in the house, things like that. Excuse me. Yeah, Women's Station Channel says, then you fish for it. Yes, but a lot of the dogs are also trained to stand there and point it out. So if you can find, you are kind of fishing for it, but if you can find your dog's nose, then you know about where it is. So, yeah. And there's really not a good way, to handle that. Because you do have to find it. But they're really good. Pipsy will let me know where he goes so I can find it. Also, they make special scoops that you can use. It's got like a little claw on the end of it. So, yeah, that helps. And probably if you get a service animal, probably what you want to do is train them to go on concrete or something that's a lighter color, so you can spot, like a friend of mine can spot light and dark. So you know, she will eventually, when she gets her dog, she will eventually probably train it to go on concrete. So she has a color contrast. Nice, thanks. I hadn't thought of that. Yeah. Then you spray cleaner on the spot. It kind of depends. You may not need cleaner. It just kind of depends on what your dog does at the time. So, good. I hope you don't. Women's Station Channel is saying yes, she may not lose all of her sight. I really hope you don't. Because I can't imagine. So, but yeah, go for that. Go for that contrast. And that's why the dogs are trained to go on any service. It also makes it more important that you take your dog out on a schedule, which is something that ESAs and therapy dogs may or may not have going on for them. So if you have a dog that's trained to go on a command, for example, I talked to a woman. She lives in an apartment. She's in a wheelchair part of the time, and she's not really able to get out that much. So when she got sick with COVID, she worked out with one of the other people who was in another apartment who apparently loved dogs and was a college student. So she said she paid the college student to come to her apartment and get the dog and take her out in the mornings, put out the piddle pads, probably in the bathroom, just in case there was an accident during the day. And then when the college student got back in the evening, took the dog back out for the final, outside. And that schedule was really very helpful to her. And I didn't ask her if she had any problems with the dog holding it. My hunch is that if it was just like 8 or 9 hours in between the two breaks, I would be willing to bet she didn't have a problem with it. But I actually, until right now, just didn't think about asking her that. I've heard of people who were in the hospital hiring rover dog walkers to help. So there may be somebody close by that could help you with the dog, you know. So, yeah. So good question, though. Really good question. Okay. So anything else that y'all want to know about? Okay. Well, I want to thank you all for tuning in. It's just been, sorry about that late notice with the link. Literally, I just got home within just a few minutes. So you're welcome, Women's Station Channel. I'm always happy to answer questions about service dogs, especially, when it comes to, what are some of the differences and what you can expect and so forth. And I can also give a good contrast on owner training service dogs versus program training, because I am really glad that I went with a program trained service dog, especially when it comes to not just what I need the dog to task for, but going out, traveling and stuff. There's just a difference on some of the things that they trained them for that I just didn't think about. So we'll have to have a service dog get together. We will. Sounds good to me. Sounds real good. So, all right, you all. Thank you so much for coming out tonight. I hope you have a phenomenal week. And if you've been following my videos lately, I've not been home much. So I've been doing some cooking in the van. I've got some videos, and tomorrow is a video. It's a shorts about cooking grilled cheese sandwiches in the van. And I did a longer one in real time, so you can see that. And I will say, going back to the service dog thing, you want your service dog trained to avoid foods if you're in an RV or a van or any small enclosed space, because it makes a huge, huge difference. So there you go. Women's Station Channel says, good night, Gayle. Your cooking videos have been fun. Awesome. Thank you. All right. Well, you all go out and have a good week. If you have any other questions, just drop them down in the comment box. I do try to look at all the comments and come back and answer as I can. So, yeah, leave those down there or hit me up on Facebook. That's another option. So, thank you all for watching, and I will talk to you on some videos this week and then Saturday night at 7 Eastern. Good night, y'all. Have a good night.